Welcome everyone to Charts Focus 1, where we teach you how to work hard and trade smart. All right, let's start off with the markets. So SPY last week provided us with a great comeback late on Friday, and we're able to retrace more than 50%, I would say around 75 to 80% of the pullback that we got on the middle of the week on Wednesday after retesting the $400 psychological level 2 times. So it clearly printed a intraday double top, or what we like to call a tweezer double top, due to the double top being made by two candlesticks right next to each other. So this double top provided a lot of sellers conviction to come in at that $400 level and eventually break below that 395 support level. And we headed lower and lower and lower until we even dropped below the daily 50 SMA. And then the one thing that I wanted to see on the market reversal was a hold of the 21 SMA. And I'm so glad that on Friday we were able to hold above the 21 SMA and eventually breaking above the 50 and remounting the 50 SMA, and then breaking above the 10 SMA and remounting the 10 SMA, and then it even broke the 200 SMA on the daily time frame and then remounted it as well. And we were able to close above that 395 to 400 5-point range once more. So, Friday was just a bunch of short squeezes that was happening throughout the entire day. I mean, if you take a look on the 15-minute time frame, right, we just continued to make higher highs and higher lows, even when we had a nice little pause in between. And that consolidation that we had in between allowed us to have more accumulation of the buyers. And throughout the entire OPEX day, we continued to push out every single seller. And eventually we ended up retesting this descending level of resistance. Now, if you go on the weekly time frame, right? So this time frame just gives me more of evidence that leads me to be more biased to the long side. And this is the reason why. First of all, we have been making this really large macro descending channel on the weekly time frame. We have been focusing on this channel for all of last year, and we're still within the same channel. And the next most important thing that I want you guys to look at, and that we've been talking about for the entire year of last year, is this weekly 50 SMA. So this weekly 50 SMA has been a huge crux to all the bullish buyers of the overall market. And every single time that we retested the descending level of resistance plus the weekly 50 SMA, we have rejected harshly to the downside, and we even created new lows thanks to that rejection on the weekly 50 SMA plus that descending level of resistance that comes from that descending channel chart pattern. Now, the reason why I am telling you guys this again is that, well, we are at a critical point in the market. We are getting really, really tight with the price action as we continue to retest this $400 psychological level again. And we've been retesting this level multiple times for almost half of last year and into this new year as well. So there has to be a breaking point. Okay, and that's what I'm waiting on. I want to see a breaking point above $400, and eventually I want to see a impulsive reaction over 400. Now, to make my bullish bias or bullish case even better, we have been seeing the price getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and at some point we're going to break above 400. Now, if you guys take a look at this kind of average line that I've made here, this really quick line graph that I made of the price action that we've been seeing since last year, you can easily follow that the price has been getting tighter, right? The price ranges for the weekly time frame candlesticks have been getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And guess what? We've been getting tighter as we're making higher lows, right? I would not be bullish if we're making lower lows and lower highs. But instead, we're making lower highs and higher lows. And so this gives me more of a bullish bias for a break above 400 rather than a complete rejection from 400 and making another lower low. Now, obviously, if the market tells me that I'm wrong, then we will have to quickly adapt as usual. But everything is telling me from last week's price action and the week before that we have to be bullish, right? I mean, the price action right here, especially last week, the bounce, even before we made a lower low compared to the previous week's low, tells me that there is a lot of buying going in, a lot of accumulation going on, and eventually both of those two factors will lead to an event, a squeeze event, where we can see a break above 400 and eventually back to the previous highs of 2022 and 2021. So, with that long-term perspective in mind, what are our targets for this week? Well, first of all, I'm expecting a retest, a little tiny pullback back to the 395 to 394 area. And the reason for that is that, well, we moved a lot on Friday, and that was thanks to and due to OPEX. So we've had this OPEX squeeze. And remember, I told you guys in the CFO Discord on Friday that there is a possibility, or actually I think I did tell you guys this on Thursday as well, that there's a possibility for a squeeze on OPEX. It's very rare, but there is that possibility. And the only reason why I said that was, well, I was biased to the long side. And if I wanted this uptrend to hold, I wanted OPEX to be the catalyst to bring us back above at least 50% of that pullback that we had from Wednesday to Thursday. So I expect us on Monday to have a little bit of a pullback, minimum 395 retest and maximum 394 retest. But if we do retest 395, I want us to have a nice bounce, and so that we can stick to that 395 to 400 range once again. So this 5-point range has become very, very significant, right? As it becomes a huge and really, really significant area of supply. So in order for us to continue this uptrend that we've been having since the start of this year, we need to stay within this supply range and continue to break above 400. All right, so that is our take for this week. We need to retest 400, and that will be my minimum price target for this week. But if we get eventually a breakout above 400, I expect us to go to 402 and then eventually 404. All right, and that's my maximum price target for this week. And if we do decide to get to 404, then next week we're most likely going to retest the very heavy level of resistance at 408.20. Okay. All right, so our first name here is GNK. So this is a shipping stock, and we looked at this name back here, all right, the first week of January. And this one has been going parabolic, right? The thing that I want to see most though was that an increase in volume while we were going parabolic here. However, we're not seeing that, which leads me to believe that there will be a good enough of a pullback for us to have a nice support buyback, right? Where we pull back into a very heavy level of support and we can buy right at that level of support. And I think that we can get a nice support buyback at 16.50 if the pullback is very, very big. But we can see another pullback entry, right, at $17. It's just a whole number level that we can use on the intraday time frame for an entry point. So I would much rather have a 16.50 support buyback from that initial pullback. But if we do a pullback and somehow find some sort of support on the intraday time frames on the 17 level, then we can definitely see an entry point. Now, the only reason why I'm advocating for a pullback is that, again, during this run up, we haven't been seeing an incredible amount of volume coming in, right? And so that also leads me to believe that the price is just having an overreaction off of remounting the daily 200 SMA. And that tends to happen on every single stock whenever we retest the 200, pull back a little bit, and then remount it completely, right? And so coupled with OPEX on Friday, this price action on Friday just completely leads me to believe that this is an overreaction. And on the RSI, the relative strength index, we are also overbought as well. So with the fact that we have also really gotten close to the 17.50 resistance level, which has been a huge level of support and resistance in the past here, we can see some ample amount of selling coming back in so that we can get a nice support buyback off of that initial rejection and pullback. All right, so our second name here is SWI. Okay, so SWI sort of looks like GNK, right? We've had a nice parabolic and very big and large breakout, right? And on the 15-minute time frame for this name, it looks like this name had gotten parabolic, right? But on the daily time frame, it just looks like a very, very nice breakout. And from what breakout, you might ask? Well, from this nice ascending triangle base breakout. So this name has been going down and down and down since 2021. Okay, so for this name to be finally getting some relief off of this ascending triangle bottom or base chart pattern leads me to believe that there's a lot of room left for us to move this week. And our golden number for an entry point, if this thing goes parabolic and continues to move up and up and up as it squeezes out all the shorts from the last 2 years, we can see a great confirmation long entry point at $10.10. All right, and that will also give us a confirmation that the price wants to stay above the daily 200 SMA, which has finally caught up to the price thanks to Friday's price action. Now, if we do see a pullback in the next 2 to 3 trading days back to the original level of resistance that we just broke out of on Friday, we can see another support buyback from that initial pullback at 9.70. Okay, so make sure you guys are having your alerts set up at the 9.70 level for a potential retest, and also a alert at $10. Okay, now this one may be the easiest trade for this week, especially thanks to that impressive and very large volume that we got on Friday. Now this was also due to OPEX, but we're able to see that this was able to break above 9.70 and eventually retest the daily 200 SMA, which is now sitting and closed at 9.97. So for the fact that the 200 SMA is still curling downward as the price moves up higher tells me that there is a very good bullish case for this name for the next couple of trading days and possibly the next couple of weeks. All right, so our third name here is TAN. So this name should be very familiar. This is the solar ETF, the Invesco Solar ETF. And the reason why I'm looking at the solar ETF is that, well, it looks exactly like SPY, right? You can clearly see that the past couple of months into last year, right? We've been making tighter and tighter price action while at the same time making higher lows instead of making lower lows. And so as we continue to get tighter right underneath this big macro descending trend line, it leads me to believe that we can definitely break above $80 finally and head back to 83 and eventually break over that 83 level and head back to the 90s. So for TAN, I want you guys to take a look at this on a weekly time frame only. And yes, you can get an entry just from looking at a weekly time frame. All right, so don't be afraid of looking at the weekly. You can most definitely still get a great entry point by looking at the weekly. And the only reason why I'm saying that you guys should be looking at this on the weekly is that, well, I want you guys to focus on the bigger picture. And in order for you to be focusing on the bigger picture, is by looking at the bigger time frames. All right, so like the weekly time frames and the monthly time frames. Now, TAN here, TAN, obviously the individual solar stocks also have to cooperate and move up higher, especially the leaders in the solar sector. For example, SCDG, ENPH, and FSLR. Those three have to move up higher because they have recently seen a very large move down. So if you really want to see the entire solar sector participating or solar industry, we need to see those leaders making great moves to the upside. All right, so our fourth name here is APA. So this is an energy name. It's an oil name, and this is completely opposite from the name that we just looked at, which is a solar name. So we just went from a green energy to dirty energy, right? What a duality there. But APA here is looking very, very good. And the reason why I say that is that if you take a look on the weekly time frame, we're forming a very classic cup and handle. This is literally textbook cup and handle, right? I mean, it can't get much better than this, right? I mean, this is the cup here, and if I just make a quick drawing, all right, we have a very simple handle here, right? So if we're able to break above this $50 neckline of this cup and handle, we can definitely come back to the highs that we've made almost a decade ago, right? If we're able to break above this huge level of resistance that this cup and handle chart pattern has been conforming to for months. So if we're able to break above 50, there's a great chance that we can see a larger breakout on the bigger time frames on the weekly and on the monthly. Now, before we get too ahead of ourselves, though, there is a trade that we can take this week, leading us into that $50 level of resistance. Now, as you guys can clearly see here, I want us to have a long entry point above $46. And that will give us a good confirmation for breakout above this handle descending level of resistance. So this $46 level will be critical for us to break out of this handle and eventually retest that major level, that major weekly resistance of $50. So that should give us a pretty good 1 to 4 risk to reward and maybe 1 to 5 risk to reward ratio if we decide to break above 50 and head towards that $51 level. Okay, and that's also where we rejected off of hard back in June of 2022. So this one, again, this might just be one of the easiest trades for the next following weeks. And because I'm saying weeks is that we don't know if we're going to see a very rapid increase in price once we break above 46 or rather a slow increase in price as we continue to break above 46 and eventually hit that $50 level support. Either way, okay, I want you guys to have a solid game plan for this one, because once this decides to break out of the handle, there's a great opportunity to have us retest that major weekly level of resistance at $50. All right, so for number 6, all right, our sixth name is VLN. So this is a rather a weird stock that we don't usually look at. Why? Well, because it's a rather unusual stock to be looking at for a very illiquid name for our Charts Focus 1. We don't look at these illiquid names where we have the average volume lower than 1 million, right? And if you guys have been noticing for the past couple of months or since you guys been with us, we only look at names that are liquid, right? We look at names that have over at least minimum 1 million in volume on average. So for this one to have an average volume ending on Friday at 807,000, okay, it leads me to believe that VLN can become a name that can be very liquid as it continues to move up in that average volume and potentially hitting that 1 million mark in volume. So this is a rather unusual name to be looking at for us, but there is an opportunity. And so here it is. So VLN, we've been making a nice base, right? We've been making a very good base between, I would say, $3 to around 5.60-ish. Now, that's kind of the reason why I give you guys 2 entry points. One that is simply over the previous high of the day on Friday, which was 5.78, or we can see a little tiny pullback to 5.60, which is the initial and old resistance that we just broke out of on Friday. So what is the opportunity here, right? So if this is a very illiquid name that's lower than 1 million in volume, why are we looking at this name? Well, because we are staying above major levels of previous resistance and major SMAs, right? We're all above the 4 SMAs that we have here, the 10, 21, 50, and 200. So all the 4 major SMAs are now below the price. And that always leads me to believe that a name can have a very good multi-week or multi-month run once it's able to gain some momentum and especially volume. So if we're able to break above the previous high of the day on Friday, or we retest 5.60 to suck in more volume and then eventually break above the previous high of the day and bring in more buying momentum and buying volume, we can eventually see this name have an average volume of 1 million. And we want to be involved in a stock that is able to become illiquid to very liquid in a very short period of time, because that can give us a nice parabolic move up. And for a name that has been beaten down for months and months and months, we can definitely see this name giving us a very, very large short squeeze, possibly back to around 7.50. So that is my maximum price target for this name, especially if we start to see that very parabolic movement that I just described to you all. Now remember, for illiquid names like this name, VLN, we need to focus on the volume, okay? And the volume is very, very important. And you can clearly tell, again, as one piece of the last evidence here, okay? We have been seeing a very rapid increase in the volume bars right over here, right? And this increase had started while we were consolidating between 4.50 to around 5.60. All right, so this gives us more confidence that there can be a very parabolic move out of this 5.60 level of resistance. And this can also become another easy trade for this week and possibly for the next couple of weeks. So remember, APA, GNK, SWI, and VLN are going to be very easy trades if we get that good breakout and continuation of that breakout to the upside. All right, our seventh name here, number 7 here, is OKTA, OKTA. So we are already in this one, okay, from last week, and I kind of gave you guys my reasons multiple times of why we want to be looking at this name, but let me go over it one more time here. So we have been holding the earnings gap up, and that is the first parameter that we need to look at for a potential swing to the upside. If a name decides to hold above its gap, its 10 to 20% gap up or even more, we need to be focusing on the name because that means there's enough buyers to hold above that gap. And what's even more interesting about this name is that we have been holding this gap for over a month now. And that leads me to believe that the buyers have enough volume to hold against sellers who are trying to make this price go down so that we can refill and fill in this big gap that we made, this 20% plus gap that we made. So for OKTA to be able to hold throughout the entire market volatility that we've had since December and just move sideways without a real trend gives me some very, very good confidence that we're able to break above the base resistance here and ultimately retest the daily 200 SMA, which is closing in very, very quickly. So as you guys already know, we did get an early entry somewhere right below 68.43-ish to around 45-ish. It was somewhere around there as the price continued to rapidly oscillate between those two cents there. And with OKTA here, the confirmed entry point will be over $70. Okay, but if you really want to wait, all right, and if you really want to wait for an actual entry point, I would say a long entry point above 72 might be better. So maybe I'll just change this to 72 if you guys don't want to get confused, because long over 70 can be a great entry point as well. But if you guys really want to wait and not get involved within that volatility as we're moving sideways, then 72 will be a great entry point. Okay, now if you aren't in this name, okay, a long entry point over 69 will be a great early entry, and that's also can be considered a long entry point over the previous high of the day, and the high of the day was 69.02. So I guess it's also a better idea too to put 69.10, so it's over the previous high of the day. All right. Okay, so our second to last one is NEWR, New Relic or Newer. So we've looked at this name in the past as well. If you guys remember, if you guys have been with us for a long time, we looked at this name over here. So this is when the market was starting to really sell off. And as we headed into 2022, this one continued to move sideways. But ultimately, it succumbed to that market sell-off, and we just pushed lower and lower and lower, creating lower highs and lower lows, which is typical of a very good downtrend. But now, we can potentially see the tables turning. All right, we have a very weird looking cup and handle, but instead of focusing on that, I just want to focus on the nice monthly wide base here. All right, this multi-month base that we've been forming since around September of last year. Okay, and this is my rough estimate. Now we have this base between 50 and 61, and if we're looking, okay, if you're looking to see this name break above the weekly base resistance, I would suggest that you wait until we are over 61. So this is the confirmed long-term entry point for this name. But if you do want to see an early entry this week, okay, you can grab an entry over the previous high of the day or just around 59.20. All right, that would be a perfect entry point. That's also where we kind of rejected off of on Friday. So if you really do want to see an early entry point and risk that early entry point for a potential break above 61, then you can definitely get a good entry point at 59 and ride it to the 61 resistance level and potentially giving us a nice big breakout above the base resistance. So I know this one's going to give us a nice breakout because all my major SMAs, the 10, 21, the 50, and the 200 are now coiling with each other. And whenever we see this type of coiling with all the SMAs, all my 4 SMAs, we tend to get a very impulsive breakout. And in this case, I'm very bullish. Why? Well, again, if you go back on the weekly time frame, we've been basing for multiple months, multiple weeks. So this is a very, very good sign that this base is most likely an accumulation base rather than a distribution base. All right. Last but not least, we have Etsy. So Etsy gave a very nasty fake out for me. And unfortunately, I was not able to take in the gains that we made once we're able to break above 124 and ultimately hit 136, which was my major level of resistance that I was looking at for my maximum profit target. But again, great names tend to give us great opportunities over and over and over again. So this week we have another great opportunity that I do not want to miss out on this time around. So we're looking at a great entry point over 132.20, or again, over the previous high of the day, which was Friday's high. Now, I love the fact that we have defended this 10 SMA right here, and we have allowed to consolidate, okay, right underneath 136, which has given the opportunity for the 10 SMA to cross over the 21 SMA. So that is a very good bullish sign in the short term. That will give us good momentum to the upside as well as we continue to surf the 10 and 21 momentum SMAs. And the reason why I say that is that, well, if we continue to respect the 10 SMA and move away from the 10 and 21 as we surf above it, we will also rapidly move away from the 50 SMA as well. Remember, my 50 and the 200 SMAs are my long-term SMAs. So in order for us to have a nice uptrend, we need to rapidly move away from them, right? Because these are the long-term SMAs that only give us insight to where the price can go in the longer-term perspective. So we need to definitely launch away from this 50 SMA that continues to follow the price closely. So in order for us to do that, we need to continue to uphold the 10 and the 21 SMA if we do decide to retest the 21 and continue to stay above both of these two momentum SMAs. Now, we're also forming a very nice broadening descending channel. So if you guys want to avoid the, I call it the micro volatility as we are forming the chart pattern and we are staying within the parameters of the chart pattern, we tend to want to avoid that, right? This micro volatility. So if you guys really want to avoid that for sure, and if you guys have the patience to wait for a complete breakout above the $136 level of resistance and ultimately above that descending level of resistance. My apologies for the notification sound. So Etsy here, we need to be able to see a very good run up back to 136 and eventually a huge breakout, a volume-backed breakout above 136 and also at the converging point of this descending level of resistance and the horizontal level resistance at 136. All right, so that is it for this week. I do not have a crypto pick for you guys. I have been adding Bitcoin and Ethereum, as I've been saying, since last year. But you know, with Bitcoin over 20,000, okay, I believe that we can see a continuation of that run into 2024. All right, I already have a very long-term perspective on crypto. So, you know, if you guys really want to look at some crypto names, individual, you know, cryptos like altcoins, make sure you ask me in the Discord chat room. But with that, good luck for this week. All right. It may be a very good risk on trading environment this week as well. So make sure you guys always know your game plan and what you're risking beforehand before you execute that trade that you're looking at for this week. All right, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you guys all in the morning. Thank you guys for watching.